Brutal murders of students, panic in a big city, intervention of psychics and detectives against the killers. Who is killing near the cemetery? Today I will tell you this terrifying story. Meanwhile, subscribe to the channel, like, and leave comments. "You're dead!" cried a little boy joyfully to his friend. He grabbed his plastic gun and ran behind the nearby bush. The boy was very pleased. He chose a strategically convenient spot, the slope of a ravine. Nobody could see him. There were only bushes and a pile of rubble. Crawling away, the boy felt his foot hit something soft. He turned around and didn't understand what he saw. What's this? A sleeping lady? Staring at the strangely twisted body, the child backed up the slope and almost tripped. He looked down and froze. It was an arm, and there was another sleeping lady. 2008, Ufa City. Rumors that 2 mutilated female bodies were discovered in a city ravine spread instantly. They were found near the Muslim cemetery. Nearby was a residential area, an unremarkable place. Both deceased were still very young women. One was wearing a red coat, while the other was completely naked for some reason. There was also a difference in the manner of their deaths. One girl died from multiple stab and cut wounds to her chest and head. The other's head was smashed. Experts later determined that the second victim was killed with chunks of asphalt. But who were these unfortunate girls? The identities of the girls were quickly established. In the nearby dormitory, the guard instantly recognized them. They were ours. From the criminal case files, the deceased were Elia Khusnudinova and Elza Khamzina, both 18 years old. Second-year students of Bashkir State University, both lived in dormitory number 1. But how did both students end up in the ravine at night? Were they lured or did they go voluntarily? The initial investigation theory was quite natural. Maybe the girls were spending time with bad company. However, it turned out that Elza and Elia were modest and decent girls. According to their roommate, Elza spent all her evening studying. She didn't even have a boyfriend. The girls spent most of their time in the dormitory and occasionally went out for fresh air. The city was in turmoil. Just a few days later, online articles appeared claiming the murder of the students was ritualistic. Public gossip started buzzing. Girls killed by Satanists since the bodies were found at the edge of the closed Muslim cemetery. But as the operatives reported, no satanic symbols were found at the crime scene. There was tension surrounding this case. Rumors spread through the city. Internet publications, the brutal double murder required special efforts from the investigation. First and foremost, it was necessary to find out who could wish death upon the 2 quiet friends. Investigators speculated. Perhaps unrequited love, someone's revenge, maybe debts. They considered insult and offense. Young people are bold and often indifferent to human life. But both deceased girls came from the provinces and knew no one in Ufa except their classmates. Shocked students couldn't help the investigation. None of them suspected the reason behind Elza and Lilia's horrible deaths. Classmates were called for questioning one by one. This lasted several days, but no one could provide anything sensible to help catch the brutes. A few days passed, and the university was shaken again. Tuesday morning began with a terrifying report from a professor. He somehow learned that on Monday evening, the police found another body. This time, the young girl was a student of the philology department. Rumors about a mentally ill maniac spread. Allegedly, a young man who failed to enroll in the university started killing one student from each faculty. Supposedly, there were notes indicating that as long as he didn't get admitted, one person from each faculty would die. Mothers were afraid to let their adult daughters go out. A hastily concocted horror story started circulating on internet blogs. It said that every day the bodies of students were being found. Attached to the victims' chests was a note, "I won't stop here. After the discovery of the girls' bodies, the city was abuzz with rumors. A maniac had appeared in Ufa. People shared information about the wild murders from person to person. The city was full of rumors about the arrival of a new Chikatilo. Periodically, terrifying serial killers appeared in Ufa. In 2006, Oleg Zaikin, nicknamed the Ural Chikatilo, was caught. He was responsible for dozens of rapes and murders in various regions. The maniac's victim in Ufa was a 13-year-old girl. She managed to escape the criminal's grasp after suffering 8 knife wounds. The criminal didn't wait for trial. He hanged himself in the Ufa detention center. Since 2005, a serial dismemberment killer, Sergei Martinov, had been operating in Ufa. He was responsible for 10 murders. His victims ranged in age from 8 to 70 years old. Usually, he cut out their breasts and hearts. He was arrested in November 2010. The maniac himself confessed, "I'm tired. It's easier to kill me." Once again, a terrifying killer has emerged. The details of the deaths of students Elza and Lily were discussed everywhere. Before dying, they were brutally beaten, and one was stabbed with a sharp object resembling a screwdriver. The crazed killer stabbed wildly until the girl stopped breathing. People talked about a horrific ritual rape near the cemetery. However, the theory of a sexual predator was debunked when experts found no traces of assault. Both girls were virgins. Investigators tried to trace where the girls might have met the murderer. All that was known was that Elza had invited her friend Lily out for a walk that evening. Detectives scoured all local entertainment venues, cafes, restaurants, gaming clubs. They checked other dorms, wondering if the girls had visited friends. Hundreds of hours of surveillance footage were reviewed. Taxi drivers, bus drivers, ATM cameras, all investigated. It was established that the girls withdrew money half an hour after leaving their dorm, taking out 500 rubles, and then vanished. A month of intense searching yielded nothing. The Ministry of Internal Affairs in Bashkiria even offered a reward of 300,000 rubles for any information leading to the case's resolution. Photos were plastered all over the city, and notices appeared in newspapers and on TV channels, but it was all in vain. The parents of the murdered girls didn't sit idly by. They turned to a well-known clairvoyant in Ufa for help. One day, a small group, including a concerned woman dressed in black and some observers, gathered at a sinister ravine. The clairvoyant spread her arms and, after a moment, shuddered and proclaimed, "I see. He came from beyond the Urals. Search there." The girls' families believed in the clairvoyant's vision, but asked the police to verify it. Officers traveled to the Urals, exploring numerous connections, classmates, acquaintances. Again, nothing. Credit must be given to the Bashkirian police. For a month, they interviewed citizens of Ufa, especially those near the murder site. 20 volumes of the criminal case consist solely of witness interviews. Detectives hoped to find someone who had seen the students before their deaths. Finally, their efforts paid off. During a methodical canvassing of neighborhoods, a young woman opened her apartment door and visibly tensed upon seeing the police. The officer asked directly, "Do you have any information about the students' murders?" She replied, "Yes." The young woman, Galina Sayranova, 20, an administrator at a restaurant, turned out to be an invaluable witness. She had stayed silent out of fear, believing she might be killed too. A couple of months prior, Galina had met an irresistible young man named Alexei, who worked as a bartender in Moscow. He took her number, promising to call when he returned to Ufa. Alexei kept his promise, inviting Galina to the Cosmic Cafe. There she saw 2 other guys and 2 girls, Lily, cheerful, and Elza, reserved and quiet. They all drank vodka, though the girls only had a little. When the guys suggested continuing the night elsewhere, Galina declined. They dropped her home and left with the girls. A few days later, Galina saw the photos and immediately knew the men had killed the girls. Panic-stricken, she was afraid to go to the police, thinking she was the only witness and the killers might come after her. While Galina agonized over her decision, precious time was lost. Detectives pursued Alexei and his accomplices, only to find they had long since left the city. They realized the killers, understanding they'd be hunted, fled in Alexei's old model Zhiguli car. The Bashkirian detectives followed their trail and identified all three men. Alexei Osipchuk, 24, a bartender with a robbery conviction. Roman Mukhtarov, 24, a factory locksmith, previously convicted for drug dealing. Denis Fadiv, 21, unemployed, with no criminal record. The fugitives were put on the federal wanted list. Soon, a report came in that the escapees' car was seen near Saratov. They were stopped for speeding, given a ticket, and released. No one knew they were letting 3 murderers go. The trail resurfaced at a car service in Rostov. The old Zhiguli had broken down after the long drive. The guys sold it for a throwaway price of 12,000 rubles. The car was confiscated and brought to Ufa. Forensic experts were shocked. The interior was literally glowing with blood, and everything was covered in the victim's hair. Meanwhile, the fugitives continued on foot. All 3 decided to make their way to Georgia and become militants. They trudged through the mountains on foot. Unused to long treks, they quickly became exhausted. With no food but mushrooms, Mukhtarov ended up poisoning himself. The trio had to stop in a village. The hospitable locals welcomed them warmly, mistaking them for students or tourists. Imagine their surprise when the militia arrived armed with automatic rifles. The bloody trio was arrested. Soon, the investigation uncovered the full picture of the brutal, absurd murder of 2 Bashkir students. On that fateful evening, Elza and Elia met 3 guys on the street. To the inexperienced girls, the strangers seemed very interesting. According to their classmates, the girls' naivety was the real problem. The young students had never experienced such intense male attention. They were tempted by the car and the cafe, where the guys paid for everything. The innocent girls flirted desperately, hoping for a serious relationship, while the drunken guys had entirely different thoughts. The guys took Elza and Elia to a deserted spot near a ravine. Locals avoided the area at night out of fear. The naive students thought they were in a romantic setting and got out of the car. The bored and intoxicated guys then suggested something indecent. Shocked, Elza immediately ran. Mukhtarov chased after her. First, he tried to strangle her, but failed. Then he struck her head several times with a stone. While Mukhtarov and Osipchuk were killing Elia, Elza sat in the car with the third guy. She must have heard her friend's screams and, in horror, imagined what was happening in the wasteland. The guys, now having committed murder, couldn't stop. After dumping Lilia's body in the ravine, they surrounded her friend. She begged them not to kill her and cried. After some time, Fadev appeared with a screwdriver, which Osipchuk used to stab her multiple times in the heart. The unfortunate girls died because of their excessive trust. Just 4 hours after meeting the guys, they were dead. What shocked the police the most was how easily the young men decided to commit murder. Later, only the youngest of them showed remorse, but it was short-lived. The Supreme Court sentenced Roman Mukhtarov to 25 years in prison, Alexei Osipchuk to 23 years, and their friend Denis Fadev to 15 years. Family and friends of the murdered girls believe even these sentences are too lenient. But perhaps fate will punish the killers sooner. That, however, is another story. To make sure you don't miss new stories on my channel, subscribe, like, and leave comments. Your opinion matters to me.